Welcome to Improving Learning Using Principles of Instructional Design. My name is Angela Dooley. I'm a Program Manager at the Office of Legal Education, and I'm sharing with you some of the things I know about educational psychology and instructional design. There is one objective for this training. At the end of this module, you will be able to combine your substantive expertise with instructional design principles to make your presentation more effective, without having to create a song and dance like you see here. So I'm guessing that the first question on your mind is this: what is instructional design and how can it help me as an instructor? So let's answer that. Very simply put, instructional design is putting together training in a way that people learn best. It goes beyond just giving an amazing expert lecture, which is important, and looks at including additional things that help learners effectively learn, or make a relatively permanent change in their knowledge, skills, or attitudes. And when you provide instruction in such a way that learners learn best, a few things happen. Learners are more satisfied with the presentation and with you. You have the satisfaction of giving learners both what they want and need, and you contribute to the overall development and improvement of both your craft and your organization. So now that you know what instructional design is and how it can help you as an instructor, the next question I hope is this: well, what are these additional things I can do to my presentation to make learning more effective? Well, think about it for a second. How would you answer this question for yourself? What are the things that make learning more effective for you? My guess is that you would probably say things like this: well, the instructor should have clear structure, he or she should give relevant examples, demonstrate skills, engage discussion, include practical activities, and provide some helpful handouts. Well, if you did think of any of these, you're not alone. These are the top 6 things that OLE students as a whole report on their end-of-course evaluations as being most effective during a course, and also most needed if they're not provided. So how do you include these things in a presentation? Well, this is where some helpful research about the principles of instructional design comes into play. David Merrill, a leading educational psychologist, has reviewed hundreds of experimental research studies on effective learning, both in the workplace and with various professionals, including attorneys. He found that if the following 5 principles are incorporated into training, learning is more effective. In other words, learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems, existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner, new knowledge is applied by the learner, and new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. So let's briefly look at each of these and think about how you can incorporate them into your presentations. Principle number 1. Learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems, or when the entire training revolves around solving authentic problems or tasks. This can be done in 3 major ways: by showing the learners right up front the problems they will be able to solve as a result of the training, by making those problems real, and by making those problems progressive. Let's look at the first way, showing problems up front. If you think back to most presentations or most lectures, the speaker may or may not start with the objectives of the presentation. If they do include them, they usually present them this way: today I'm going to talk about X, and then I'm going to talk about Y, and then I'm going to finish with Z. As helpful as that is, it tells the learner what you are going to be able to do, but it doesn't give the learner much of an idea of what he or she is going to be able to do. What the learner is going to be able to do is a much better way to present an objective and a problem. A good way to do this is to include toward the beginning of your presentation this statement: as a result of this training, you will be able to, and fill in the blanks. For example, if you remember from the beginning of this training, I stated the objective or the solution to your problem this way. I said, and I quote, "At the end of this module, you will be able to combine your substantive expertise with instructional design principles to make your presentation more effective." So there's one example of how to do it. To review this principle, learning is more effective when it is problem-based, when instructors show problems up front, make problems real, and make problems progressive. At this point, you may want to pause this video and think about how this may work for you as an instructor. Let's move to principle number 2. Learning is promoted when existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. So what does this actually mean? Well, knowledge is organized into something called a schema, or a collection of what you know and what you know how to do. People learn by connecting what they know, or their current knowledge and skills, to new knowledge and skills, and by reorganizing it into a new schema, or a new way of knowing or doing. So what does this mean for you as an instructor? Well, let's go back. If someone already has an existing schema or a good amount of relative knowledge and skills, well then how can you activate his or her existing knowledge? Right, you can ask them. Have them discuss or demonstrate their experiences before you provide them with new knowledge and skills. Now, what if someone doesn't yet have those experiences or doesn't yet know the skills to be learned? What do you do? Well, you have to provide them or give the learner the existing information needed to be able to relate to the new information. And how do you do that? Well, here are 3 ideas. By describing your experiences, especially when your experiences when you were new, by showing the learner the problems they'll be able to solve, as I mentioned earlier, and one more way, by providing them with an organizing framework or structure for their new knowledge and skills. Here is an example of an organizing framework, the principles of instructional design. A visual model and slide such as this makes it easier for the learner to understand where you're going and how each component relates to the overall presentation. So activate the learner's existing knowledge by eliciting experiences, presenting your own or others' experiences, and providing a framework for your presentation. Take a few minutes and think about how you can do this with your own presentation. What questions can you ask of the learners to elicit their experiences? Can you tell an interesting, relevant story to present an experience? Or can you add a slide to your presentation to visualize a framework for the learners? All right, on to principle number 3. Learning is most effective when the instructor demonstrates what is to be learned rather than merely telling about what is to be learned. Yes, very straightforward concept that most instructors do a fairly good job with, but let me break it down a little bit more. Knowledge is typically divided into 3 types or categories. Concepts, or the understanding of what things are, what things mean, or how they are interpreted. Skills, or the behaviors needed to perform a task or activity. And processes, the description of how things work, or the steps involved in some activity. For effective learning, in addition to telling or lecturing about concepts, skills, and processes, an instructor should also do the following. For concepts, they should show examples and non-examples. For skills, they should actually demonstrate or show a demonstration of the skill to be learned. And for processes, they should provide a visual or a flow chart of the process or the components of something. Now let me show you some examples and non-examples of these knowledge categories. Say I want to present to you the concept of cognitive overload. I could just stand up there and tell you that cognitive overload is when the brain is presented with too much visual and or verbal information and the learner has to choose which information to remember. I could also then tell you that this seriously hampers learning because of the disjointed nature of attending to too many things. Now, do you think you effectively learned that concept? Maybe, but I think I could also improve your understanding of cognitive overload by showing you an example of a slide like this. A slide that is overloaded with visual and verbal information. Wow, how many times have you seen something like this? As well as a non-example like this. A visual image without a lot of text that more clearly demonstrates the concept of cognitive overload. That too many spoken and printed words together overloads the ears because we hear the instructor talking and ourselves reading, and too many printed words and pictures shown together overloads the eye. This is both an example and a visualized process. So, to sum up the principle, demonstrate, show and tell, give examples and non-examples, and use multiple media to demonstrate, things like charts, graphs, images, videos, and demonstrations. Again, take some time to think about how you can add examples, demonstrations, and visualizations to your own presentation. So up to this point, we have talked about 3 principles of effective instruction: using real, authentic problems, activating existing knowledge as a foundation for new knowledge, and demonstrating new knowledge to the learner. It's now time to cover the 4th, a simple but surprisingly difficult principles for instructors to include in a presentation: giving learners the opportunity to apply what they've learned, or allowing learners time to use and practice their new knowledge and skills. So here's a real, authentic problem for you. If you are scheduled to give a presentation that lasts 1 hour, and you spend 55 of those minutes talking, we'll add in 5 minutes for questions, do you think that learning is most effective? Probably not, and it's easy to understand why. Learners need a chance to do what you just did. As an instructor, you have just demonstrated new knowledge to the learners by showing examples and non-examples of concepts, demonstrating skills, and visualizing processes. It is now time for the learners to practice what you just demonstrated, for them to provide examples and non-examples of concepts, for them to demonstrate new skills, and for them to describe and visualize new processes. So what does the instructor do during this time? So what would you want from an instructor if you were demonstrating and practicing the knowledge and skills you had just learned? Exactly. Feedback and guidance about how you were doing, and suggestions for how you would continue to improve. For example, let's say you are teaching learners how to reduce the cognitive overload of their slides, and you have demonstrated to them how to reduce the amount of text and graphics on one slide. You may then want to have learners apply this information to an example slide such as this, and then give them feedback on their attempt to reduce the cognitive overload of the slide. So that's the applied principle in a nutshell. Give the learners a chance to give their examples and practice their skills, and then give them feedback on how they're doing. Now to the last and yet equally important principle. Learning is promoted when learners are encouraged to integrate or transfer their new knowledge and skills into their everyday lives. But wait, don't people have different everyday lives? So how can learners in a class integrate their new knowledge and skills when they have different experiences and different lives? There's no one single activity that is going to be perfectly appropriate for everyone, right? Well, you're exactly right. Learners need time to reflect individually, even if for a short amount of time, about how what they've just learned and practiced fits into their unique individual lives and roles. Then they can discuss together how they plan to integrate their new information. When learners do get back into their world and hopefully continue to integrate their new knowledge and skills into their lives, they can reference the information that was presented, as well as any additional information that may have been provided. So another simple concept to understand, yet one that can still be difficult for instructors to implement. Integrating new knowledge and skills into individual worlds and experiences. Think about how you can include time for this in your presentation. And yet again, we're back to the time constraint problem. I'm guessing that at this point, the question is, well, if now I need to incorporate into my presentation time for learners to apply and integrate new knowledge and skills, how much time do I spend lecturing and demonstrating versus giving time for the learner to practice, reflect, and discuss? How do I divide my time to say everything I need to say and give the learner time to apply and integrate? Well, here's the thought, and let's look back at our model to demonstrate it. There are 2 principles that are primarily the task of the instructor: activating existing knowledge as the foundation for new knowledge, and demonstrating new knowledge and skills to the learner. And there are 2 principles that are primarily the task of the learner: applying newly learned knowledge and skills, and integrating new knowledge and skills into their world. Research suggests being fair, dividing your total presentation time among those things that you will be doing and those things that the learner will be doing. So, if you are giving a 60-minute presentation, you would allow 30 minutes for activating the learner's existing knowledge and demonstrating new knowledge and skills, and 30 total minutes for the learners to apply and integrate their new knowledge and skills. How many presentations have you seen designed like that? Well, hopefully you will say the ones that are the most effective, those in which the instructor allows for these 6 things that we talked about at the beginning as being critical components for effective learning. Well, here's how they fit into the model. Pretty evenly and fairly, don't you think? So there you have it. 5 principles of instructional design that you can incorporate into your presentation to make it a more effective learning experience. Using real, authentic problems, activating existing knowledge as a foundation for new knowledge, demonstrating new knowledge to the learner, allowing the learner opportunity to apply new knowledge and skills, and integrating new knowledge and skills into the learner's world. And that's our objective for this training. Hopefully, you are now able to combine your substantive expertise with instructional design principles to make your presentation more effective, involving no gymnastics whatsoever. Thank you very much, and I wish you good luck with your presentation. Welcome to Improving Learning Using Principles of Instructional Design. My name is Angela Dooley. I'm a program manager at the Office of Legal Education, and I'm sharing with you some of the things I know about educational psychology and instructional design. There is one objective for this training. At the end of this module, you will be able to combine your substantive expertise with instructional design principles to make your presentation more effective, without having to create a song and dance like you see here. So I'm guessing that the first question on your mind is this: what is instructional design and how can it help me as an instructor? So let's answer that. Very simply put, instructional design is putting together training in a way that people learn best. It goes beyond just giving an amazing expert lecture, which is important, and looks at including additional things that help learners effectively learn or make a relatively permanent change in their knowledge, skills, and attitude. And when you provide instruction in such a way that learners learn best, a few things happen. Learners are more satisfied with the presentation and with you. You have the satisfaction of giving learners what they both want and need, and you contribute to the overall development and improvement of both your class and your organization. So now that you know what instructional design is and how it can help you as an instructor, the next question I hope is, what are these additional things that I can do to my presentation to make learning more effective? Well, think about it for a second. How would you answer this question for yourself? What are the things that make learning more effective for you? My guess is that you would probably say things like the instructor should have clear structure, give relevant examples, demonstrate skills, engage discussion, include practical activities, and provide helpful handouts. If you did think of any of these, well, you're not alone. These are the top 6 things that OLE students as a whole report on their end-of-course evaluations as being most effective during a course, and also most needed if they're not provided. So how do you include these things in a presentation? This is where some helpful research about the principles of instructional design comes into play.